All right. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing okay. I'm going to make sure that I'm coming in all right. I do not. Okay, I'm good. So, um the elections this year. Hey, how you doing, man? So, you might be wondering why the hell somebody who doesn't even believe in elections to begin with might be covering the elections. And I guess the reason is that I just find this year's election very strange, very different in a really weird way. And yeah, again, hi Mark Schumann. I hope you're doing good, man. I'm gonna pop this thing out so I don't have to worry about it. It doesn't matter right now. Um so I guess my main question is, why is this happening with the election? Like, why all of a sudden are, like, cause have you guys noticed how quiet things have been since the election? I mean, we've had a few things here and there, like there's the Maricopa County talking about election fraud just a little bit, and it's mostly just kind of being dismissed, and all the news outlets are saying, "Oh, the election was mostly smooth this year." And while I'm personally very glad that we're not seeing rioting, cuz shit gets old, you know. And I just think that there's also some other reason for why this is happening. And the other thing I'm going to just show you real quick, cuz again, I guess now it's the present button. Share screen. Oops, I'm gonna just real quick before I do that. Okay. Now I'm gonna pretend that I have a basic idea of doing this like I do every time. Okay. So the whole thing with like the whole election fraud thing, the whole election fraud meme is, it's still there, but you don't see people fighting back, which I find weird. And then also, of course, nobody expected anything different, but you pretty much have your map exactly how you would expect it to be. You'd expect Florida to be red, New Jersey to be blue, California to be blue, Oregon to be blue. Like all these states, I think for the most part, if I'm not mistaken, they pretty much all stayed the same. So, and then we had our election fraud claims, which, Maricopa County, I know other people were saying that they were happening in other places. I was talking to somebody in my area who um was talking about how the voting machines in their local area were kind of acting weird. And then there was a news story, and I can't really show it here without giving away too much about my exact location. But there's been stories coming out here and there, like about, oh, ballots were found in a weird place here in this county and that county, and just a little bit all around America. But you'll notice that there's no protesting. Oh, hey, Murphy's Law, how are you? There's no protesting or anything, so I found myself wondering why that is. And I've kind of come to a conclusion on that. So I was gonna do like a more formal video or whatever, but I think I'm just gonna share my theory on like what's going on. And I think the main aspect of what I think is going on is a simple one. You know, since 2016 we've had ongoing. Oh, there's that too. That's a good point, Murphy's Law. You okay. Many are afraid to be jailed because of January 6th. That's true, and we're kind of get into that too. Um I was so just to start with though, I think we've already had we've already had a couple things happen where, you know, the whole corrupt election fraud, all of that stuff has already been coming up. It's already in our collection collective consciousness as it is right now. So I think what also ended up happening, and Murphy's Law makes a very good point. You know, there's definitely that going on. There's a lot of fear. You know, I do think that there's definitely there's definitely a lot going on that would make people more afraid to say that there's election fraud and more afraid to even openly identify as a Republican. And, you know, like I said, I'm not saying the Republicans are much better than the Democrats because I don't really think they are. But yeah, it's just this is how it is. But this is kind of the main thing with my theory. I think they've already gotten us kind of used to the idea that what we see in our elections is not necessarily what people voted. And you know, you guys already know how I feel about that. But so like they've already had this whole meme of like, hey, your election is probably not going to be honest. You know, look, they're they're throwing out ballots, and there's missing ballots here and there and everywhere else, and oh, somehow the somehow the Republicans or the Democrats still won this state. Okay. In a second. I'm just trying to get my my thought out cuz this is I don't know. Um so it's already in the collective consciousness that the election is a fraud. Even with um even with everything going on. And then now we're kind of in the next phase of this whole changing of the collective understanding of how things are run here, because in America we've always had the illusion of choice, you know, Coke or Pepsi, Democrat or Republican, you know, all, all these different companies. And now they're kind of stripping that away. Now you've noticed in a lot of things, I'm sure, that most things are owned by the same company. Most things like, you know, the Democrats and the Republicans now they're basically kind of, you know, shoving Republicans over to the side. You know, they're making it so people can't vote Republican as easily, and then they're kind of demonizing Republicans more. And it's honestly for a very simple reason, which is that out of the two, you know, Democrats are pretty much straight up, hey, we believe in Agenda 2030. I think Agenda 2030 will be great. You know, here, give up your rights and go green. Whereas the Republicans kind of still embody, or at least in the collective mind, um they embody the old American values, the Christian values, the things that the things that think of when they look at like America. And yeah, Brandon Spencer has a good point. Using trauma to traumatize the masses. which creates a fearful mindset. Yeah, that's also true. It's definitely about getting people afraid, for sure. That is no lie. But it's also just to like strip away the illusion of choice, which is like, that's what America was founded on. It's like we make before it was like America was like the parent that has the kid in the car, gives the kid a fake steering wheel and tells him he's driving. Nowadays it's more like, okay, you're not driving, but I guess you can pretend you are. Like they're just honest with the kid. You're not driving the car. Stop pretending you are. It's just more and more obvious that these people don't work for us. There's no illusion that they work for us anymore. It's just basically telling you you have no choice. You're going to go along with what I say. So yeah, the fear, the January 6th, as Murphy's Law brought up, the January 6th, that's a good way to inspire fear. You even get people afraid of like, oh, you know, if I vote, I'm not going to hear I'm not they're not going to my voice isn't going to matter. So why even look at things? Why even pretend that things are like equal at all? I saw you in the chat, and Murphy's Law says, I saw you in chat and I loved the content. I too have a channel. I'm not left or right, but I expose the bad people. Yeah, see, that's where you have to be. You can't be left or right um at this point, cuz it's all hypocrisy. One of my favorite examples, like, people get really triggered when I tell them both sides are the same. Cuz they get mad. A left wing person will call me a Republican. A right wing person will call me a Democrat because I might criticize the others to them or whatever. And then, like, but the point is that when I point out the fact that, like, something like, take the take all the pedophile stuff for instance. You know, the right wing is really into, oh, but pedophiles, pedophiles, pedophiles. And then, like, Trump will make some nasty comments about his daughter, or, like, or I don't know. It's more like incest. But the point is, like, right wing pretends that they care about perversion, and then, they platform a guy who um perverts everything. And then of course the right wing, a lot of them are still supporting Trump, who instituted the original lockdown and technically started this whole 2.5 year nightmare. And it's just like, you can't tell me at this point, because anything that you say, anything that you say that you want to point to, that side does that. Your side has probably done it too if you're in the left right paradigm. Murphy's Law says, what do we do now? Uh, I don't know. I was watching a little bit of Carol's chat earlier, and I kind of understand where she's coming from. But I feel like she's right about some things with that. You know, there's some things that we can't really change. And I don't know. I just think, like, if you want to see change, then you have to start by looking at where you can change things. It's like, yes, Carol is awesome. I love Carol. Um, but you have to look at where you can where you can change things. Like, even simple things that we could all be doing. Use cash more often. Um, keep physical copies of things, because that's another thing that they're trying to destroy is physical copies. You know, go buy, go get your go get your favorite documentaries on DVD. Go get your movies on DVD. Go get your CD, your music on CD or whatever. Take back some control, because that, like, take back control. Buy things secondhand. You know, whatever you have to do to know that you physically own something. Cuz the more we give up our ownership, the more the more we the more we kind of give in to the system. Also, yeah, Fluffy Maine Coon said, I missed a couple of comments. I'm gonna go ahead and go through that. This election cycle has been all about democracy, which Lenin praised as a step toward communism. They are out now. Okay. Yeah. That's a good point. That was another thing I was gonna bring up too. Um, all Oh my god. Okay, all of the I'm losing I'm losing track of my thought because this weird troll person showed up. I can't believe that. Oh, um so thought I was having is, as far as I'm aware, and someone could correct me in chat, but I think that even the most, like, obvious dictatorial people in history have held elections. I'm pretty sure that even North Korea holds elections that they always win, you know. So I'm gonna go through more of this, more of these, because and then what do we do now? I'm gonna go back to Murphy's Law's comments as well. Whoops, I almost put the wrong one up here. Murphy's Law asks, how do we do it peacefully? Our forefathers never told us. It seems to be a mystery. Well, our forefathers had a lot of really good ideas, but I don't think that they're the entire answer for everything. I think right now our best bet is civil disobedience. And I'm gonna get to Fluffy Maine Coon's comment too, because I think he answered the question that Murphy's Law had. Um Oh, Mary! I'm happy to see you. Um so I think right now the best thing that we can do is start with civil disobedience and taking more control of our personal actions. You know, so like I was saying earlier, you know, get physical copies of things, physical copies of books, physical copies of movies, physical copies of everything. Own own things. You know, maybe see what you can do to avoid the subscription model for software, like that kind of stuff. We have to push back against all that stuff. We have to push back against the we have to push back against, like, the digital currency. So, like, you know use cash. One of the things that I do is I actually carry around some cards. I have I always have cash in my wallet, and then I carry around little cards that I sometimes use to explain why, why I'm using cash in the transaction. Especially if I see somebody wearing a mask or something. I actually gave somebody with I actually gave somebody that was wearing a mask and gloves the other day, one of those cash cards explaining, like, why it's so important to have cash still. And then, yeah, that's what you can do. You can always you can secondhand. I'm a big fan of secondhand stuff. Everybody knows that about everybody in my like daily life knows that about me. I will always be a secondhand guy. I will, you know. I'm always like go find the oldest books, the the old movies, especially like in movies are particularly important in a different way because a lot of those movies are telling you what they told us now. What kind of about what's coming now. We have the classic movies like They Live and Soylent Green and all that stuff. Let me let me go back to another comment that I wanted to look at by Fluffy Mancoon. Let me read that one for us. They did tell us, meaning they told us how to deal with the government. They said whenever any form of government becomes destructive, these ends, it is the right for people to institute new government. Yeah, that's very true. They did tell us that, and we should try. Yeah, old books too, for sure. That's one of my reasons for going to secondhand stores as much as I do. You know, old books, old movies, you know, that's what you have to do. You have to preserve history, and unfortunately, a lot of our history, a lot of our previous understandings of the world go through old movies, old books, old everything. So I think it's very important that we do preserve that, because especially nowadays it's really concerning to see how people have the goldfish memory. The goldfish memory. They're like, you know, turn away from the news for like 5 seconds, read another article that completely contradicts the one that they read earlier that day, earlier that week, whatever. And they just completely forget and they just completely buy the contradicting information. It's really disturbing, and I think that's one of the reasons that people really do need to preserve any sort of anything from the previous eras of time, especially the pre-COVID era. All right, I have a couple of comments to read. I'm gonna read through. That's good, Mary. That is very good that you're doing your part. I'm gonna kind of go through chat a little bit before I continue on, because I feel like I'm gonna fall behind if I don't. So where was I? Let's see what you guys are saying. Many want to follow Jesus. He wanted no part of the. Well, Murphy's Law says many want to follow Jesus. He wanted no part in government. Fact is, we live in the devil's world. If we don't vote for change, we suffer. That that's fair. You know, it is true that the longer that we vote for these people, and the longer that we decide to allow evil to go on with no accountability, and I don't just mean Carol makes so many good points about that, and she probably says it better than I do. But she is absolutely spot on when it comes to the lack of accountability in our society. We're just all supposed to forgive and forget. We don't, you know, nobody's allowed to bring up the fact that such and somebody did this, even in their own lives. So how how can we have wider spread accountability amongst people if we can't even have accountability amongst ourselves? And just a little bit of an aside about Jesus. So many people forget so many things about Jesus' teaching. You know, loving your neighbors, helping your neighbors, giving to those who have less than you. And then I'm gonna go on to, yeah. But yes, Murphy's Law, we absolutely, if we don't vote for change with our own actions and our own accountability to God and all that stuff, we do suffer. Hitler was elected, the Soviets did too. Absolutely. Yes. I knew I kind of knew that. I just wanted it confirmed by somebody else who might know more than me. Brandon Spencer says democracy is a euphemism for bringing in communism. I could see that. I could see where democracy would be a euphemism for that. Because first it's like democracy is mob rule, and then you get of course, communism's kind of like that too, because technically no one owns anything and we all kind of share through the government. I don't know if I worded that very well. Murphy's Law. We have the right to take out tyranny, but how do we do it peacefully? I don't have all the answers to that, but what I do know is that the best place to start is within yourself and within your communities and within your relationships, where you need to have accountability, hold yourself accountable, hold others accountable, and live by the example. Live an example of what you want to see other people doing, what you want to see more of in the world. You want to see more accountability, be accountable, like that kind of thing. I don't know how to do justice to that, but yeah, we can definitely change our own habits. We can definitely try, you know, we are dependent on the system now. Like there's just a lot of things that come along with that. But what we can do is we can try to remove the control of the system as much as we reasonably can. Thank you. All right. Well, I have many books on herbs. When shite comes down, people are gonna need some herbs. Oh, for sure. Because when the allopathic medical system falls apart, um, we're gonna probably be pushed back to that that way of handling things, mostly for the better. Mary says she's been using cash more to do her part. That's good. And yeah, so Murphy's Law says about the masks. I went to pick up my glasses here in Washington. They all had masks. I couldn't even get fitted. I could not wear a mask. That's really ridiculous, but not surprising. Not at all. It's been two and a half years. I can't even get medical help. I'm not wearing a mask. I look at people wearing them and I'm so afraid. Yeah. Um I'll tell you what, I don't know if I really feel as afraid. I mean, I guess yeah, I feel a little bit freaked out when I'm looking around and there are a bunch of mask holes staring at me. I don't like that feeling. I don't like the feeling of being anywhere in public where there's somebody that's still somehow willing to put that thing on their frickin' face. I don't know if I really feel more afraid or if I feel more frustrated at times. Maybe it's a constant battle between the two. Just so fucking frustrating. And excuse my language, but seriously. I know that sorry. Rights of the people is a primrose path fantasy. Yeah, at this point it is. They might pay some lip service to the Constitution and all this stuff, but nobody actually abides by the Constitution. I can't think of any time in the recent American history where somebody actually looked at the Constitution as if it was meant to be law. And I even see, especially Democrats, I see a lot of Democrats, not that I'm not that I'm a left right person, because I'm really not. I'm not into that kind of bullshit where, I mean, I'll say it, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Both sides are, both wings are part of the same dead bird. And as some people really like to hear me say, you're voting for clowns. It can be Bozo or the It Clown. Choose one. At some point, you just don't want to walk away from the circus. But the problem is implementing a new government is the same analogy for Sauron's ring. No man or group of men is meant to maintain such power. That's actually true. I definitely agree with that. I think we need to get away from the idea that a few people need to rule everybody in the first place. Not only that, but the other thing you have to consider if you're going to implement a new government is the fact that most people, let's say let's say right now, let's say right now, we all get up, we all impose our own government, and we overthrow the tyranny or whatever. Okay, what now? Because most people don't even know what they want. They don't know what they're looking for out of life. They don't know what they would want to the government to look like, or if they do, they have no idea how to even manage themselves at this point because this is a nanny state. Like they're so used to being shepherded by the fucking nanny state that there's almost no way that I could see where we don't almost end up in the exact same situation pretty quickly because people don't look at themselves. So there's that issue to consider too. I'm gonna skip down a little bit with the comments because I have some stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna go. I need to. Okay. And Murphy's Law says at the eye doctors, everyone was all masked up. A child, maybe 2 years old, was not masked. My mate and I, not masked. The child wiggled off the father's lap and toddled over to us. Yeah, so that's a 2-year-old child. He grew up in this insanity. He was just stuck dealing with it his whole life. Probably barely knows how to read social cues at this point. I really wonder what kind of developmental issues we're going to be seeing. The only two people without a mask. That's unfortunate. I know a lot of our medical institutions and stuff here in California still mandate masks. How do they have Do they have that sort of thing going on in Washington as well? Murphy's Law? I sell soap and try to do the local stuff. See, that's a good thing. The problem here is that there's no huge fucking solution that's gonna come out and happen overnight. There's no, oh, we need to just go guns ablazing over to the White House and do this, this, and that, and hold out, do whatever. It's like we have in order to change, we have to be able to prove to ourselves, and we have to be able to actually make the changes within ourselves. It's not enough to just go. I mean, protesting is great. I'm not knocking protesting at all. I'm not knocking anybody that goes and tells the government what's up. But all right. You know what? I might actually take some call-ins, but I wanted to try to get through. Yeah, I'll do that. I will do that. I know how to do. I think I did a call-in show like a really long time ago, probably like almost 2 years ago, year and a half. So I can do that for you. Let me get my link for you guys. I know, dude. That's what I'm doing. A lot of things going on. Okay. So that's open, and I don't really. Okay. That's how I do it. I gotta. Sorry, I forgot to take the comment off the screen. So, yeah, it's just like there's no you have to make changes, you have to lead by example, and then eventually we'll get to a point where enough people know, like, okay. Um Mary said, "It's so sad to think the issues that these young children will have." He hit the nail on the head. These children read social cues. Yeah, that the social cues thing really scares me. I just think of my cousins, my cousins when this whole thing started. Some of those things, some of those kids were only like toddlers, and I wonder how far behind they are already, much less the kids that were born during this whole thing. And I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna let Murphy's Law jump in for a little bit as well. Hey, Murphy's Law.
Hi, Hell on Wheels. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm just dandy. I was in a good mood, and then I decided to ruin it by getting on the internet.
Well,
Uh,
you know what?
No, I'm only joking, but just I'm honestly glad that there's some sane people around here still, cause I know I know Washington. Washington seems fucking nuts, if you don't mind me saying so.
It is.
Yeah, my condolences for that experience that you had at the eye doctor.
Uh, oh. So, I've been up and down the East Coast, from the Upper P in Michigan down to Louisiana, and I traveled across country for love. And my hun, okay, we listed the place for sale, and so. this whole election thing happened and everybody wanted Smiley, and we got Fatty Patty, the person that locked everybody down. So I went in to get my eyes tested, and the doctor was like, "Oh, well, you have to wear a mask." So all through the whole place, nobody made me wear a mask. And then I see the eye doctor, and she was really cool. She was like, "Can you just put it over your mouth? You don't have to." And I'm like, "Look, lady, I've been gang raped. I've been laid out to die, and I can't wear your mask." So I had to put it like 3 inches from my mouth. It was just the mask deal, right? So I got my eyes checked because I had very bad vision, and so nobody in the whole place was wearing a mask when I went and got my eyes checked. So the election happened. Fatty Patty. Everybody voted for Smiley. She was the Republican, and but anyway, I went back to pick up my glasses, and I needed two different types, and everybody had a mask. And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't do that." So I was
And it was
kidnapped.
and it was mandated in there. Yeah.
Well, they didn't push me out the door, but everybody just went along with it. The people that worked there, people looking at glasses, people going back, I guess they got fitted. And here's the problem. And I told the woman, I said, "Look, man, I was kidnapped. I was duct taped, and all. Uh, I didn't even go into all that. I was like, have you ever had anyone put their hand over your mouth, close your nose, and so she was really cool. She's like, I understand." So Dick and I, we stood at the far end of. This is an eyeglass place, people. This is not the hospital. I'm not bleeding to death. I just want to get the stinking glasses that the eye doctor said I needed. And so yeah. And there we sat in the very corner. Everybody, the customers, the stinking people that worked there. Okay, so the one lady that was taking everyone's information, she had half her head shaved, she had blue hair, and she looked like a crack addict because that hair wasn't normal. Okay, and then when you look down the hall to the right was this other plumpy plumpy gal that literally looked like the happy hooker. She, okay, look, I've worn those fishnet stockings. They're beautiful, on the right legs, but these were like extra sized. I'm like, what is that? The happy hooker? What the fuck is this? So I'm from the East Coast. I just traveled to Washington State in August from Florida. And I'm thinking, who the hell comes to work looking like this? What
Yeah,
the
it's not
hell
even
is
like
wrong with you people?
it's not like this is Hooters where you would expect that. Like, and I'm not the type of guy to like judge people's appearance, okay? Like, I'm really not. But it's kind of ridiculous to me that it's kind of ridiculous to me that people just can show up to work basically wearing something that would make them look like they don't work a job if you catch my drift. All right,
Okay,
there's someone
hell on
else.
wheels.
Yeah.
So here's my thing, right?
Yeah.
I've been a bartender. I've been a DJ. I went to those after parties. I went to those raves. That's something you wear there. You don't go into a flippin' establishment medical, looking like the happy hooker. She, oh, so literally because I couldn't stand, and like I said, there was a 2-year old that wiggled off of. Okay, mommy and daddy were there. I guess it was mommy and daddy. They
Mhm.
were getting fitted. So there's one area that you get fitted. So mommy and daddy had the mask on, and the child didn't. And that little toddler, not even 2 years old, I'm guessing, wandered over to drop an eye, right? And there had to be 20 people in there looking at glasses, getting fitted, and this little child knew the difference. Like, that's a scary Mary. And that's what I saw. I'm like, I'm really scared to be here. I can't wear a mask. I can't see people's faces. I can't see if they're frowning, if they're happy. And I already have my own issues, right?
Yeah.
And it was horrible. But here was a 2-year old kid that literally looked at everybody. That child, 2 years old, was as scared of people with the masks. It toddled over to the two people that didn't have the mask. We were the only two people that did not have a mask. Drop was like, I ain't going there. And I said, lady, look, I've been kidnapped, and a lot of bad things happened, and
Yeah.
I can't do that. So they didn't really make me wear a mask, but I stood in the corner and they were like, well, you can come back and get fitted. I'm like, look, it seems to me here in Washington State, as long as Fatty Patty, so many people want it smiley in Washington State, as long as Fatty Patty's in control, the mask is never gonna go away. So let me tell you something. I don't think you're ever going to be able to fit me, because I'm never going to be able to fit the mask. And I have been without any medical. I can't even go. I can't go to an eye doctor without a mask. I can't
Yeah.
go to a doctor to treat MS or Parkinson's or anything without a mask. I and if you go to a hospital, if you break an arm, they're not going to treat you unless you take a shot.
Yeah.
So guess
Excuse
what?
me.
I'm
Excuse me
medically
for a second.
uncontrolled, and that's really sad. I'm sure there's so many other people that are like, yeah, well, I got bursitis in my arm, and and we just won't go. We're not going to go.
That's true. That's definitely a thing that's happening. I know that I personally like I've run into some things and then I'll be like, "Man, I'm not going to go in that hospital and have to explain." Like I actually had to be in the hospital recently. I spent some time I spent some time in the hospital and still, even still 2.5 years later, they were still trying to get me to get all these shots and I'm just like, "Dude, I'm not. I did get coerced into getting the first two because I had to. I don't want to go into the whole situation on here, but like, in order I got coerced and then they were still trying to push the booster on me. But I guess just real quick, I'm going to let Fluffy Mancoon in here. Fluffy Mancoon as well. How you doing,
Hi,
buddy?
Fluffy.
Hey, good to hear you. How are you doing today?
I am just dandy. That's
So I did want to get back on the topic of the midterms and just get sort of a thought process of sort of a thought from you is, my take on it. Just getting back to it, not to hijack things a little bit, but
Oh
is that
no, I this is like my streams never never stay on one topic, so it's totally fine. I wouldn't have done a call-in show if I didn't expect it to go everywhere.
Yeah, is that it sort of reflects a systemic issue in the populace, I think, is that I do think, and I think the popular people were like, oh, well, it's the abortion issue or the Moloch ritual, if we'll refer to it that way. And I do think that people are so interested in death and the actual destruction of society that the fear of that faux right to destroy being taken away from them, I think it may have actually had an impact more than we like to admit on the elections. I didn't know what your take was on it, and if you thought that that was sort of one of the issues in this systemic problem with the populace being undereducated and just really have a propensity towards evil was something that maybe have reflected in this term, because you could see how badly the Democrats should have done in all, I mean, based the economy and based on everything.
Yeah, I could see that too, and I think you're right about the fascination with death as well. Um, yeah, cuz like I'm just thinking back right now to many posts that I've seen on the internet where there's more, there were more Rona doomers and stuff like that. And they would like they have such rich fantasies of how people they deem as Trump supporters or anti-vaxxers or whoever you want to call them. They have such rich fantasies about how they expect them to die and how they hope when they are breathing their
Oh,
dying
yes.
breath, that they all they can think of is I should have listened. And I don't know about like that too. And yeah, the maybe with the abortion thing.
Hell
Like
on wheels. I have to tell you something.
what?
So, in the Bible, and like I'm not a holy roller, it says, "Have no faith in man, have faith in me." And so I already knew a little bit about stuff coming to market. So I don't want to get you like banned or so. Take 7 to 10 years for VC to be trial and trusted. So everybody that took the V literally was a guinea pig. And I'm so sorry that for whatever reason it is, and I'm not holding it against you, that you felt you need to take the V. Um, I'm just saying that you are a guinea pig, you're a lab rat, and everybody else is. So,
Yeah, I understand that. I I fought them. You don't understand what I like. I went through a lot trying to fight them people for like
but
months,
look,
and
it,
I
it,
ended up in a I ended up in a bad situation. It was
okay,
basically I
this
was
is why
yeah.
I would never go to a hospital or a doctor because I was afraid they were going to force this on me. So I was on like 20 different meds, and trust me, the withdrawal was really bad from the medications I was on. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not, because I knew it took 7 to 10 years. And look, even though T-Man I'm trying to skirt around names. Even though T-Man said warp speed, he said, if you want it, you want it. And I don't think he was knowledgeable. And the Democrats were like, oh, he made it, we ain't taking it. But then when Potato Head, Sloppy Joe got into power, everybody was like, "Take it, take it, take it, take it," and people took it, and it could harm your health because it wasn't even 6 months. And please, please, everybody, do not get a booster. Just stop, stop, stop.
Well,
Don't do
I think if
Yeah.
I may interject, I think Wheels certainly understood that the sort of victimization that was going on with him at that time, from what I've heard, and that they really forced him. And I know people who were in having cancer treatments and things like that who weren't allowed to get the treatments, who were would literally die if they didn't do it. So I really feel for the position that he was in, and I think he fully understands that, and I wouldn't put it past him to know
I
at
honestly,
all.
Fluffy, I honestly, okay, so he already had issues about any of these things coming on, and um, he did do warp speed, but he did say, if you want it, take it, right? He never mandated it. So when the second power came in, they were like, it's mandated. So many people got fired from jobs.
Oh, indeed,
And
yes, of course. I mean that's nothing you can nobody can debate that, and I think that's what Wheels is getting to is that it was a situation where it wasn't his choice, more or less. It
no,
was
no.
foisted upon him, which is victimization in its lowest form, quite frankly.
Yeah,
Um,
and then you have to also consider the fact that tr- the Mr. Trump played his role. You know,
Yes.
he there's the like they knew that using Biden to push the whole take it narrative was going to be easier to do than with Trump. And that's how it is. Trump was just as much of a puppet. He was just, he was here to bring in the lockdowns and stuff like that because they knew at that time that they
hello,
could sell it
Wheels.
easier to an audience. They could sell it easier to the right wing audience if they, said it was, oh, Trump's lockdown or whatever. And then now look where
No,
we are
I
2 years
think
Oh,
later.
literally,
you're
hello,
absolutely true,
Wheels.
Wheels. You're absolutely right, Wheels. They overplayed their hand with Trump, the media and the elites, and then they needed to get the Democrat in because all the Democrats or leftists rather would not
Okay,
support anything that Trump did, so they needed Biden to get them to go on board. So you're absolutely
okay,
correct.
guys. So there is an executive order from 1972. It's 11490, and Nixon did it. So about a year ago, I was homeless. I was living in my car. I at least had a car, so I wasn't really homeless. But I pulled up. I was very. I was looking into these emergency acts. Why? We had 9/11. There's emergency. Then we had this. Now this is a health emergency. And oh, by the way, guys, there is absolutely a difference between martial law and medical martial law. And we went through medical martial law, right? So I think Trump was trumped. And if you remember back in 2019, Obama did his Christmas list. He was like, oh, here's cheap things. And then he did the elf on the shelf. I think that was a cue for Fauci. Many people called Fauci an elf, right? So the elf on the shelf might have been releasing a bioweapon.
I
And
think the elf on the shelf is just creepy.
oh
I think the
well,
elf on the shelf. I
I mean,
think
I think definitely we've lived under the tyranny of medical professionals, and it's been building for long because this sort of um, scientism and the theory that if you have enough letters behind your name is the only way that
Fluffy,
you have any
Fluffy,
authority is
Fluffy.
that's where
Let me
we're
tell
coming
you,
from.
hey,
Fluffy. Let
listen,
me
man,
tell you something.
you gotta stop talking over people so much. I don't
I
mean to
am
be rude.
sorry. There's a little delay.
Okay. What were you gonna say though?
So Fluffy. I think maybe Trump had bad advisors, and he's still pushing the vaccine, but he never said mandated, where Biden says it's mandated. And a lot of people lost their jobs, and it shouldn't be a religious thing. My body, my choice, right? You can kill a baby, but oh my god, I can't commit suicide. You're gonna lock me up. So I don't know how that works. However, what it's I don't know. It's such of a liberal mindset. And when I went into stores and I couldn't wear a mask, people attacked me verbally. People stalked me in parking lots. And they waited for me to come out and they yelled at me and they screamed at me. And I'm like, dude, you don't want to fuck with me. I got post traumatic stress. I could kill you, right? It didn't matter. And I had to be on my best behavior. And I couldn't even be on medicines. I could not go to a doctor. They required me to wear a mask. And I was like, no, can't do. And when Trump left office, he was like, if you want it, take it. If you don't, don't. But when Biden got in, so when Trump was in there, like, Trump created it, don't take it, don't take it. And then when Biden got in there, like, everybody in, you got to take it. You got,
Okay.
okay, so
Um.
it was an experimental drug.
So
And,
can I just say something about that real quick? Wouldn't that also wouldn't it kind of make sense with what I'm saying then, where he kind of played a role, and then there's the whole kind of left right paradigm thing where
Mm-hmm.
they got like,
it is.
hold, just let me finish my thought. So the whole left right paradigm thing, they had Trump. They got people sufficiently inflamed with him talking about the vaccine and stuff. And it was just like they wanted Trump to still seem like the good guy so that they can kind of like smooth things over. And then now it's like I don't know how I don't know if I'm doing a good job, but so you had the Trump thing and it became the Trump vaccine, and then everybody's like, oh, don't take it, it's a Trump vaccine. And
You're absolutely right.
wingers didn't want to take it. And then as soon as Biden takes office, then all the left wingers wanted it and all the right wingers didn't want to take it. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with how both sides, it's kind of like a little game back and forth. If you want left wingers to do something, you make a Democrat say it. If you want right wingers to do something, you have a Republican say it.
Hell on wheels. Look, let me tell you, I'm a libertarian. I don't go left or right.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not what I do either. But I'm just
I, I,
proving a
I
point.
literally, I do, I vote, and sometimes I'm right, I'm left. It doesn't matter. This whole thing with the vaccine, I'm not okay. Like the Bible said, have no faith in man, have faith in me. And as soon as it came out, that's what popped in my head. And I was studying at the time. So I studied different religions. I've been like Lutheran, I've been Baptist, I've been I even studied with the Jehovah Witnesses for 18 months. So I've never committed. And I saw Jehovah Witnesses take the vaccine for literally one lady worked at the hospital. And she was like, oh, I prayed to God and she took the vaccine, right? And I'm like, but it has baby contents and it has this and it's not tested and but she took it. Then the other lady I studied with, And oh, they're beautiful people, trust me. They're very beautiful people. The other lady wanted to go to Disney World in Florida with her grandkid. So, to fly on an airplane, she had to take the shot. So, you can't tell me. Okay, I am very religious. Like, I'm like, okay, I've studied at least four religions. I've read the Old Testament, the New Testament, the King James, and I'm going to keep on reading. And you know what? I went to a Lutheran church, so it has nothing to do with religion. But the one thing that popped in my head was have no faith in man, have faith in me. I would never take the shot. I have MS, I have
Hmm.
Parkinson's, a broken neck, three herniated discs, and today I don't even take a painkiller, right? So I'm just saying, guys, overcome it, get rid of it, and trust your heart. Your whole thing with God is a personal relationship. And don't let anybody tell you any different. And whatever it is that you believe, just believe in your heart and believe Jesus and God are there. And look, I'm not one of those religious freaks. I'm just saying that all this stuff comes about, and you can't, when they come up with something that tells you it's going to cure you in 6 months, when originally, as the science says, it takes 7 to 10 years, don't do it. Don't do it. You know what? I could piss on your head and say you're saved. Are you going
Okay.
to take
If I
that?
may interject, if I may interject for one moment, I just wanted to hop back at something. I do apologize, but I do have to hop off soon. But I wanted
Okay.
to make an observation. Your observation, Wheels, was quite astute, I believe, with regards to the dichotomy between the two parties and what was going on with Trump and Biden. I do think that it goes back to this feeling in my head, maybe I'm wrong, that Trump is not the sort of messianic figure that many of the right believed him to be, and that he's no different, and he's probably runs in the same rounds as all of these other people, as the Bidens, as the Bushes, as the Obamas. I think he's part of the same group, and I don't think we've seen the person yet from the right who could pull the reins away from what's going on right now. So I do think I just wanted to recognize what you said before I hopped off, and I do appreciate you letting me on, and thank you very much. And on that note, good evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate you coming in to chat here because I just think like some people really get themselves too stuck on the figures and the person, and they're so quick to try to defend, I don't know, one figure when it's just really the whole thing is a mess. So, um,
Here's one thing I have to say, Helen
I think
Wheels.
I think though, like I just want to kind of make an observation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like I don't know, I kind of I kind of feel like you don't I don't know, like I kind of feel like you don't quite you do get where I'm coming from, but I don't know. I feel like you kind of I've been awake for a long time. I didn't want the shot. I had to get it to not die or some yeah, basically to not die immediately or as quickly. So, I kind of just wanted to point this out though that like um a lot of people in here a lot of people in here all we kind of have people in here from all over different situations and different viewpoints and stuff, and it's great. So I do appreciate your insight, though. You are right about them being poison, and
Helen
uh,
Wheels.
mhm,
So I have to say a few things. It's
mhm,
never one thing, right? Because I'm so opinionated. And
yeah,
I really wish that people would take more care in their body and not eat processed food. It's a very bad thing. And grow your own food so that's more nutritional and be healthy. So there are so I am learning so much herbal stuff. Like I don't know if you have high blood pressure, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't give you medical advice. Um, Look into buckwheat, right? And there was so many things. And look, I was born in the 60s, right? So I noticed throughout my life that Tupperware came up. We used to get milk delivered in glass bottles. Then everything turned plastic, and then the big C, which was so far and few in between in the 70s, became more prominent in the 80s. What changed? Plastic,
yeah. There's
right?
plastic. Well, it's a lot of things. There's plastic. There's all the radio frequencies. There's all the poisons in the food. There's the fluoride and the
I
fucking
agree.
shit in the water. It's just everything around us is basically kind of we're kind of like trapped rats in the sense that like
We
we're
are.
kind of trapped in something that's eventually going to kill us. You know how you get like the rat traps where it's like or you get a mouse trap. Well, it's like being stuck in like one of those mouse cages, and all you're given is like cheese with rat poison in it. Like that's just basically like we're kind of living in a situation where literally everything is going to kill us all the time. And how useful you are to the new world order is going to control how how quickly they decide to do away with you.
I agree. I agree. And it's so sad that so many people will just go along to get along. And I don't look, our votes don't even count, right? They'll just steal it. Um, People roll up and they're like, oh, you already voted. No, I didn't. I'm here. And so it is, look, 5 years ago when people said, government selected, they're not elected, I would get really ticked off. But here I am, and so I already knew by 2020. And of course, I was very medicated. So I broke my neck, three herniated discs, and Parkinson's and MS. And I had like go to sleepers, wake uppers. I had everything you could imagine. And the wonderful thing about the CV was basically I got off all the medications. And people, I have to tell you, um, half the shit you're on is basically the doctor's giving you something for what do they call it?
Well, half the shit you're on is the thing that's going to cause you problems in the first place. Like
Yes,
you can
yes.
take, I don't know, let's say for a second you have nerve pain. You take Lyrica for nerve pain. Then all of a sudden your short-term memory's gone and you're dizzy and you're like, "Where's all this coming from?" And then you
Yes.
realize I'm taking 60 I'm taking
It's
like
the side
200.
effects.
Yeah,
When they
but
put
I've
you
kind
on
of
the
lost,
first when
sorry.
they put you on the first medication, there are side effects. Then in like 2 or 3 months, you go back and you say, "Oh, doc, I can't poop. Oh, doc, and you know what? if you would just read the side effects on the medication of the first medication they gave you, hello, you can't complain, because if you complain, they're gonna, uh, they did it to me. I lived in a house with toxic mold, and my ex literally, he was an army sergeant of 14 years. He didn't believe me. I'm like, hey man, the house is making us sick. So he went from 1 year having, he had pneumonia, and then a year later he had COPD end stage 4. He never had COPD 1, right? So in any event, I'm like, dude, next. He's like, I gotta go to doctors. I'm like, they're gonna give you 2 new medications. And he's like,
Yeah,
why do you say that?
if you even get frustrated, okay, if you even get frustrated with your situation, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get antidepressants. If you get frustrated, like
Yes.
even if you don't have anything physically wrong with you, if your doctor asks you how you're doing and you're just like, you know what, doc, I'm kind of frustrated with my life, they're going to be like, oh, so you have depression. Here's some Prozac. That'll help you out. And then next thing you know, you're going to be like kind of a zombie. It's like the second that you feel any negative emotion or anything else, they'll put you on like, oh, you're a little bit anxious about your life situation. Here's some fucking benzodiazepines. Here's, oh, you feel kind of sad because your mother just died. Here's some antidepressants. Like,
Yes.
and then on top
It's
of
a
that,
pill for everything.
and then we have Americans who are looking at things on a very surface level. They only see what's right in front of them, even though it's all an obvious mirage. Like where they don't look deeply into things, and it could be because they're scared, it could be because they're stupid. I don't know every individual person, so I couldn't tell you. But you have all these people that are only looking at things surface level, and then they're looking at this disturbing reality and they're like, I shouldn't be sad about it, so I'm going to tell my doctor that I'm sad about it. And then the doctor over medicates them, and then they keep voting for these people, and they keep consenting to the rule of the people that are that are being lobbied to by the same doctors that are giving people the medications that allow them to actually deal with the fucked up system that we're living under. And it's stupid because we just keep consent. Everybody just
It's
keeps
all about
consenting.
big pharma. And let me tell you something. So instead of somebody really cool, when I was getting broken bones and being like total, oh, I had a very bad husband. So instead of them like saying, hey, let us get you some money to get you somewhere, they put me on Prozac. So that man could come up and just smack me in the head. He could punch me in the chest, and I'd be like, okay, right? So, no, that never solved the situation. The situation was I had an abusive husband, and really I needed to get away, but nobody helped me get away. What they did was he would beat me up, he would call, he would call law enforcement, and he would make a false claim, and so I would be away from my medications, and I would be in jail. And you know, maybe he was a liberal at heart. I don't know, but I didn't do nothing. I just got the shit beat out of me. I went to a hospital. I got treated. Cops came in. I was like, no, 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 this ain't happening. And then I went home and I got arrested on my doorstep. So, no, no, this shit's been going on for 20 years. It's a
I mean,
liberal
yeah,
pipeline.
it's
They
like
just want to say, oh, I'm a victim. No, No, I never cried I was a victim. And even when I went to court, I was like, really? Here's my hospital report. Who was the victim? And I still never turned on my husband because he was my husband, right? I'm like, daughter of mob. And you, you don't do that. But in any event, people today, um, they're so whacked out on drugs. They're either on Prozac or whatever. And these children, you know what, people, you want to make the world better? Stay with each other. Stay with each other.
Okay,
Raise your children.
I think it's a great idea to try to get people that can stay with each other without harming each other. I think that's a great thing. But I don't know about staying with each other no matter what. Like, if somebody decided to start treating me like crap, I wouldn't stay with them. And that's completely, I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But, I get what you're saying. And, you know, if you can stay together, you should, because relationships are work. You can't just be like, oh, I decided that we argue too much, and instead of getting to the bottom of why we argue so much, why don't we just leave? But then there's also the problem of people getting together when they're not compatible and not looking to God for guidance when it comes to how to find someone that you can be with and raise your kids in a healthy way with. I do believe that people should stay together as much as possible, but also don't subject your kids to a horrible relationship because those kids will
Hell on
suffer.
wheels. So,
Hmm.
babies should never be a business. And my last husband, literally, that woman had 4 children by 3 different men. And she was collecting, all that child support. And. So, children should never be a business. And I can fix it, right? So I don't care if the husband was a billionaire or a poor schlep. I don't know. Why don't we just turn around and say $50, a week per child? But the mother has to do $50. The father has to do 50. That's $100 a week. Okay, now we have inflation. It might be a little more. But in any event, if you really want that child to have a better freaking living, I don't know, stay with the person. If they're beating the hell out of you, I don't know, get them arrested. It was really, really hard until a actual off-duty police woman officer that was where I was with, and my husband was like, come here, come here, come here. And he busted my face, man. There was 9 bones in my face, busted at this time. I never ever placed charges on him. And this is not about me, it's not about abuse, but I'm saying certain things happen in life. And it's not about being a victim. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a good idea to walk around acting like a victim. But yeah, but there's also an issue of, yeah, if you can, if like somebody is beating the hell out of you, unfortunately, we live in a world where, you have to, that getting them arrested is a way to hold them accountable. You should try. I mean, I've had my fair share of violent crimes and stuff committed against me, and I've always tried to hold them accountable somehow. That's just what you need to do, or in my
oh,
opinion, at least.
I'm the person I am. But about the politicians, what we need to do is put out the old guard and put in the new. And maybe they're not going to be perfect. And maybe we have to vote those people out, but never follow a party line. Never, ever, ever. Never, ever. Um, like I said, I'm a libertarian, and I'm not gonna vote one way or another. And really, right, left, it don't matter. They both suck. Even though the right may have the House, they ain't gonna do shit. The right had the House when Trump took office. And, like, the only thing about Trump is we had it a little bit better. And, gas was.
Until he instituted the lockdowns, which started this whole thing to begin with. And now, you know what? I don't mean to be a pain in the butt and keep harping on that, but I just never, ever, ever want anybody to forget that. I don't want anybody to forget any of the people that decided they were against martial law and then they went with Trump. I don't want anybody to forget about that fact that Trump started this whole thing. I'm not saying it would have been any
On
different.
wheels.
No, no, no.
So,
Listen. I'm not saying it would have been any different if there was a Democrat in office. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the whole point is that they're both the same. If there was somebody that they actually didn't want into office, that person would not make it into office. Full stop. You know, that's just our system is set up to only bring up the corrupt people. And to be honest, at this point, when I was younger and I first woke up to all this stuff, when I was first sitting there thinking about, hey, that's weird. There's an international government. Who the fuck voted for that? When I started first asking myself those questions, I used to think about, like, okay, maybe we need maybe we just need to vote in different people or whatever. But the older I get, the more I realize that we need to learn to govern ourselves to the best of our ability. We need to stop looking at these people and thinking that just voting for the right one is going to be enough. It's not going to be enough because nobody because of this and the fact that we're all used to being ruled and we're all used to having somebody have control over us. The fact that that's been going on for so long is exactly why people look at a figure like Trump and see the hero, like the kind of savior that they expected. Like, I remember over the past 6 years since Trump has gotten into office and stuff like that, all the fucking televangelist people, all of them started with the Trump prophecy and stuff like that, and nobody seems to be able to admit that Trump was not some kind of savior figure. Trump was never, ever, ever in there to help you. Trump was always, always, always going to be in there to betray everybody. And he flirted with the truth community because he knew that just enough people were going to be there and still be and still be able to be lulled back to sleep. That that if you just stuck somebody in there that was going to flirt with the truth community just a little bit, that they would be lulled back to sleep. And suddenly, the people that were heavily against martial law in 2011, 2013, 2014, now in 2016, now in 2020, when Trump started doing his medical martial law, which I know there's a difference. When Trump started his medical martial law, everybody was like, but it's Trump and he's trying to help us and he's going to get the vaccine out quicker and stuff like that. And that's the thing. This is what happens when people just rely on voting and they don't look at what they want and how we could govern ourselves. That's the problem. Is there is no self-governance. There is no small scale accountability. And if there's no accountability in the microcosm, there's never going to be in the macrocosm, because at the end of the day, what we live is what we live in our large scale reality is just simply a group of individual realities, and we reflect what and bigger reality reflects how we carry ourselves in our little microcosms. And as long
Look,
as and as
I
long as
totally agree, Hal.
Mhm.
Um, there should be no right and left paradigm. And if you look back, and I can't link it because I'm on your show, in 1989, in a King, you know, what the hell was his name? King. Uh, it was 1989 that literally Trump loved his life. He stated, I love my life. They were asking, hey, do you want to run for politics? He said, no, but I have to. I will, right? So,
Yeah, I know what quote you're talking about. He said that
right, right.
he would
So,
if he had to, if things ever got so bad that he had to. And sure enough, like people were getting I think what was happening was that Trump was placed into office to stem the Great Awakening. Because I feel like so many people were starting to wake up to what was going on in our country. And they
and we
were
did.
yeah,
And
we were starting to there people were starting to wake up. So they were like, "Okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's pick a candidate that has already kind of implanted in people's minds this way that has made those quotes and let's go onto the internet and use AI to kind of synthesize some talking points." So you'll notice that candidate Trump was very pandering to the truth community. He was even talking about getting 9/11 investigated. But as soon as he got into office, suddenly all those promises were gone, and candidate Trump was completely forgotten. And then we had President Trump, and President Trump went ahead with all like he didn't drain the swamp. He filled it with, he had fucking Henry Kissinger and all of your dirty piece of shit globalist people around just all around him. He just filled the swamp with more creatures. But everybody, by the time that people could realize what was going on, they had so much emotional investment in Trump that they couldn't see the forest for the trees anymore. And then by the time 2020 rolled around, it was just too late, and you weren't going to get those Trump supporters to wake back up.
so what can we really believe? We can't believe anything. But I can
This
tell
is the
you, I
well,
can
that's
tell you about a week, and I'm not even a Q-tard, right? So I'm Murphy's Law. I look at so much, and I have my own channel, right? So, um, I want to tell you a week before Q resurfaced, I talked to somebody that claimed they were Q, and I said, you know what? The world needs. There's a lot of people. Okay, we. It's just hopium, right?
yeah, it's
And
copium. It's
I
hopium.
never, I never questioned that person for validity, whatever. I looked at all, Q Post, SG report, everything. And so a week after, I literally talked to this person. I'm like, I don't know, man, come back as Oracle. So that person posted. And I don't know if I really talked to Q. I I
I
don't
don't think you
even.
did. I imagine that whole Q thing is a psyop anyway.
Hell on wheels. Okay. If I talk to somebody and within a week they post it, what are the chances? So I don't believe in coincidences, and I really don't believe in Q. Right. So I'm sitting here like, wow, wow. Maybe did I talk to Q? And it don't matter. So I'm not a Q-tard. And But I don't believe in coincidences either, right? Because I'm Murphy's Law. I'm Murphy's Law. And you're hell on wheels. I'm Murphy's Law. And I don't believe in coincidences. So, mm, I'm just saying, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I said to this person, the world needs Q more than ever. If you really are Q, come back as the Oracle. The person never actually said Oracle. Maybe it actually was a coincidence, but I'm very well connected. I talk to different people, and look, all I want is my country to be cool. I don't want us to like get a paycheck, be taxed, and then turn around and pay for something and be taxed. Look, I have a very small company, and these people taxed me 20 cents. Then I'm like, I'm an LLC, hello? And so they charged me state tax, and then they charged me freaking shipping tax, which I paid for. They only said it was $4.12. Cost me over $12 to ship it. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fluff? I'm sorry. Um so there are people in charge, and we're never going to get ahead. We're just the slave of the system. That's all we are. We're the slave of the system.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna probably wrap it up here soon. Um, I just am but I'm gonna like kind of say some, I guess, closing things. So Murphy's Law, thank you for jumping on in here. I hope to, I hope you'll stick around.
Oh man, I'm always around. I love you guys. I'm always gonna look for the truth. I'm always gonna dig down the rabbit hole. That's just what I do.
All right. Okay. Okay. So I guess at some point soon, cause I could see it. If I don't wrap up like soon, it's gonna end up being really late before I do. But I just wanted to like, I guess, share some closing thoughts. Basically, I hope that we can do. I will probably do more of these call-in shows at some point soon, but I might do it a little bit differently. Um, I might do things a little bit differently from now on. I don't know how this will be structured, and I don't know if all my lives are. I don't think all my lives are going to be call-ins, but I know that I'll probably be doing more of that more often, and I also plan on doing some more videos as well. This one was actually going to be more of a video essay type thing, but I just felt like I just needed to kind of talk to you guys about it, and Fluffy Maine Coon added a lot. All you guys in the comments added some really really good things. Um, Murphy's Law added a few good things. We had a good one. Um, I just think that, like, as far as solutions go, because I feel like truthers eventually always get asked about solutions. You hope she does. So I know truthers always get asked about solutions for things. Um, and to be honest, I'm not gonna sit in here and act like I always have. I have all the solutions, because I don't have all the solutions. I'm not the answer person. I'm the, hey, let's think about this thing person. I try to have the answers to as many questions as people can have as many. I try to like kind of look at life and figure like, okay, there are things I can do. I can not vote because voting is consent to rule, and I'm not going to consent to that. I can buy physical copies of media instead of digital ones. I can archive things. I live in an apartment, so growing my own food would be harder, but maybe I can, grow some things on my balcony. Like there's things that we can all do. If we don't like certain things, then we have to be the example of like how to do things outside of that way that we don't like. So, and I think another thing I was gonna say that I didn't get to say was the fact that I think what's happening, and I didn't really get to expand on this too much, but I think that um all right. Mary says we can't predict the future. We can only examine where we are and where we've been. That's true. That's very true. And I think that's another problem that we have in the truther community is there are so many people in the truth community that spend so much time on, oh, this is going to happen and this is going to happen and that's going to happen, that we're not even really paying as much mind as we should about what's happening now. And I think maybe to an extent that could have been part of what brought us to where we went in this decade now, because a lot of truth channels, we've all been sitting here in like predictive mode, and all these truth channels were talking about things that were coming in this decade. I think Melissa from Truth Stream Media even acknowledged that that's what they were doing on their channel to some extent, which I think it's important. I think it's important to warn people about what's coming, but there's also a little bit of like a learned helplessness that comes along with that. I think people, when we start talking about predicting the future, I think a lot of people, when they start talking about what the future could be and all this stuff, they kind of get this sense of learned helplessness of like, okay, so Agenda 2030, and this is what they're saying is going to happen in the future. Therefore, this is what's going to happen in the future. But I believe that um so oh what was I just going to say? Oh yeah, the learned helplessness thing. I think people get so focused on trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future that they're not even paying attention to what's in the present and what we could be doing to stop the future. And it's going to be harder now. And you know what? We could very well be living in the end times. We could very well be living in the end times right now. And if we are, which I can't tell you because I'm not Jesus. I'm not God. But but I do know that even if we are living in the end times right now, that is not an excuse to sit back and be helpless. You have to know that you're not helpless. You have to look at what you could be doing. And maybe there are some limitations. Maybe your living situation doesn't allow you to grow food. Maybe yeah, I mean obviously like we can't we could there are some things that are just beyond limits. Like I wouldn't expect everybody to. I'm I would not expect everybody to, for example, go throw their phone in the ocean and go live amongst the trees. But what I would hope is that maybe you can look at that smartphone and you can get those social media some of those social media apps off if you see them as a time sink. Maybe you could go back once in a while as a truther and re-examine the basics. Like, remind remind yourself that this matrix that's being put up around us is not reality, and that the solution isn't voting, it's changing within yourself and reflecting that change onto the rest of the world and helping people understand that they are not helpless. You're not helpless. Do I think that things are going to change overnight? No. But I think that if all of us can make choices in our daily life, and we can have people, and we live our lives in such a way that people look at us and go, why is he or she so happy? Or why have I never seen that person use a credit card? Or why is this person not looking at their phone? Like there are things, there are choices that you can make. Absolutely true. We all have a part to play. Yes, we do, Mary. And I just want to know that when I pass away someday, I don't want there to be a bunch of things that can be pointed out that I did not do that I could have done in my lifetime. Even if we lose this, even if we lose this war, we can't I will not I will not lose my principles, cuz I think that that's that's one huge problem that we have here. Even if people know what their principles are, they just they'll let them go the second that they become inconvenient. And I've seen some people with some very shoddy moral compasses around. I've had some conversations that I just kind of had my jaw drop at. Has that ever happened to any of you guys? Have you ever seriously questioned somebody's moral compass? Um so yeah, it's at this point where I guess another thing that I would suggest is you know what? I can give my input on things. And I do, and I will give my input. And I'm hoping to give my input a little bit more. But the truth is that no one else is going to have the answer for you. You can ask 10 truthers what the solutions are. And you know what? There might be some similar things. James Corbett shares some of my sentiments about how it's important to have physical media, physical books, and things like that. Oh, yeah, I feel like we've all had those moments as people that are awake. We've all had those moments where you're just like, did that sheep just say that to me right now, unironically, and tell me that this is perfectly fine? Oh, we have a couple of Massachusettsians or whatever the hell you guys are called. What do they call people that live in Massachusetts? Can either of you tell me? I would appreciate it. Oh yeah, I know massholes. I've heard I've heard Mary I've heard Mary say that. I've called Massachusetts mass psychosis to Mary before. You know, I thought it was a good name, much more appropriate. Um so yeah, I just think to like get onto that other point that I was trying to make earlier with this whole thing, cuz I've been racking my brain since Trump got into office in 2016. I have been racking my brain as to as to how sure over 90% safe and effective. Yeah, the psychosis in Massachusetts, from what you guys have told me, is pretty effective. Probably right up there with California, where I live. Um, yeah, I'm one of those unfortunate folks that moved to California. I often wonder why I'm here. And then I'm like, you know what, man? The trees and the beach are nice. But yeah, so I find myself used to find myself really struggling with how people got lulled back to sleep when Trump came in. And I think I figured it out. People got lulled back to sleep not only because he flirted with the truth community, which he did. He did plenty of that. But I think it's also the fact that people they don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know themselves. They don't know what they want out of life. So they find themselves still looking to the leader because that pattern has been so ingrained into them from birth basically. Trust authority, trust authority, trust authority. Then on top of that, you have a world that is getting so crazy and absurd every single day, and it's so scary that people just kind of you know they just want to look to somebody that can make it seem like it's going to make sense. And the Trump narrative was perfect because it had just enough understanding of the understanding enough of the corruption to get people that understand corruption hooked in. But he was basically their hero. Mary says, "We got Mara Healy, we always lose." Oh, is that your governor, Mary? Yeah, everything. Once the state's blue, it'll always be blue. And I'd be surprised. I would be honestly surprised if I see a Republican president again in my lifetime. And I'll tell you why. Again, this is not me defending Republicans, like at all. I'm not a fan of Republicans. But I do I do think, like I was saying earlier, that they at least on paper look like they're supporting some kind of American values. Whereas the Democrats are kind of campaigning on communism, socialism, and they just they straight up tell you that they hate America and they don't like white people and they don't like men and they don't like these people and those people. But they disguise it as love. Whereas the Republicans are just like they kind of sound like, oh hey, let me like what about American values? That's what they sell you on the whole. Oh, but God and American values. They don't really look like that. They're not like if you look at them in practice, they just kind of have their own censorship and their own this and that. And as long as we keep voting for people, we're always gonna lose. As long as we pick the lesser of two evils, as long as we keep picking evils, there will always we can't sit around and wonder why there's evil. But people want someone else to do it for them. They want someone else to do the hard work because they can't look inside themselves and figure out what they really want out of life. They don't have any principles to live by. And one of my favorite sayings, and I don't remember who it's by, is a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. That's why people fall for the lies as often as they do. Yeah, that's another point, Mary. I'll tell you what. I I don't torture myself much with presidential debates and speeches and all that kind of bullshit. But on the odd occasion that I do tune in, I find myself really getting frustrated because when I listen to these candidates talk, it's like I'm listening to bickering school children. Yeah, it's just like, no, yeah, no, yeah. Well, you did that. Well, you did this. Like they just go back and forth, and then their attitude of bickering school children, like then you look on the internet and you listen to these people defend candidates, and they all literally seem like they've regressed to children. Just their emotional state because they're looking for mommy and daddy government to rule for them, and they don't want to get out of their child mind to be an adult and figure out how to govern themselves and make their own choices. They need someone else to do that for them. It's just I feel like we've regressed so much as a society, even in my lifetime, and I know I'm not as old as a lot of the people in here are. I feel like I've just watched like a complete infantilization of the population. People argue like school children. We get less and less literate with every um every generation. You know, my generation we got our common core. We all know how that worked. The No Child Left Behind Act, we all know how that worked. Bickering school children is so accurate. Thank you, Mary. I don't know how else to put it to you guys. Uncool paranoia. How you doing, buddy? Um yeah, it's just like literally tell me it's anything else. Tell like sit and watch the news for about 5 minutes and all it is like, it's the equivalent of it's the adult equivalent. Listening to the news is like the adult equivalent of someone mocking another kid in school. It's like, the Republicans, look at them, they're talking about guns and da 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 da. And and then you go to the Republicans, they're like, listen to the Democrats. They're all blue haired idiots and like it's just nothing but insults and bickering and bullshit. Bullshit. Because if you sit and listen like during election time to the news outlets and stuff, all you hear is that bickering. When's the last time you've heard anyone talk about any of the when's the last time you've heard a politician talk in any adult way about the policies that they want to implement? It's almost like they rely on magical thinking as well. And if you don't know what magical thinking is, It's like it's a very childlike type of reasoning that people use. So basically, magical thinking occurs in children typically. So like one example of magical thinking is like, I don't have any money, but I know the rent will get paid somehow. It's like they kind of look and it's like, okay, I know that this is bad right now, but it's magically going to get better. And I'm not going to have to sit and think about how. And that's kind of what we get around here a lot with the magical thinking. It's like, oh, that person got into office and they're going to make it better. I mean, sure, it's another line of fucking Democrats or Republicans. You know, one of the two and everything stays the same. But just people always just magically think that everything's going to get better because they literally cannot cope with the reality that it can't. And that's what magical thinking is. It's just like it's trying to wish away reality because you can't cope with reality. And that's something that we're supposed to grow out of as young children. But I feel like the older that I get, the more that I see that people are regressing more and more into young children. And I honestly feel like I need to do a video or a stream or something like that just on the infantilization and how much worse it'll probably be in the next generation because kids that are going to come out of the kids that are going to come out of the corona era are going to probably be functionally illiterate. My money's on that. Infinite spinning wheel of idiocy. Well, yeah. You know what I'm thinking of as uncool paranoia just told me that. You know what I just pictured? I pictured like Adam Sandler playing a dumb character and being strapped to a wheel and spun around, and on each area of the wheel there's just some like dumb something really dumb on the wheel, like maybe like a dumb punishment or a dumb phrase or something like that. That's what you just made me picture, uncool paranoia. So thank you for the image. Thank you for lightening things up. I don't know why I immediately thought of Adam Sandler, but I did. Like 90s Adam Sandler. Uncool paranoia. Where are you located? If you don't mind me asking. I forget what state you're in. Oh yeah, and I completely lost my train of thought, but to finish what I was saying to Mary's comment, yeah, voting against a candidate with the whole bickering thing. That's where I was going with the bickering. And it's like you imagine just being such a child that you it's like when your mom tells you don't touch that cookie and you're like I'm going to go touch that cookie. It makes me really think about how much reverse psychology runs things. Oh, you're in Michigan. Would you like to tell me how Michigan is? Uncool paranoia. You can hop on for a minute if you want to. If we don't laugh, we'd be in a corner, rocking back and forth, crazy. Yeah, exactly. If you don't laugh, if like we can't escape the circus, so we might as well just sit down with some popcorn. So like that's kind of where I'm at. It's like I can point out that there are a bunch of clowns here. I can point out that I didn't ask for a ticket to this circus. But at the end of the day, all we can do is sit back with some popcorn and maybe just keep asking people why they keep bringing in more clowns. I think one of the things that might help us in the long run too, and this goes back to one of those possible solutions. Maybe just asking people a question. Don't necessarily give them a bunch of information to chew on right yet. Maybe you just ask someone a question. Ask them, for instance, why they vote. Ask them if things have ever gotten better because they voted. Start really getting. I mean, people have goldfish memories now, which is really disturbing. Especially since COVID, I think we've seen more and more of that stuff popping up. Like this goldfish memory type bullshit. And I think if we get people to look, I think if we go to people and we get them to look back and you're like, hey, neighbor, do you remember that time that people were supposedly dying in the streets in China? Hey, coworker, do you remember the last time they said this and this happened? Or hey, didn't you see in the news that they also said this, but now they're saying that? Exactly. Go IRL with people. Yeah, go IRL. Go in real life. Talk to people in real life. Because I did some reflecting recently, and this almost became a video actually. I did some reflecting recently because I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter before I took all of my social media and stuff off my phone, which I did, and I don't regret it. I argued with somebody on Twitter for a little bit. Some idiot that does not believe that critical that CRT is being taught in schools. Which, from what I understand, I'm not a parent, I don't have kids in school, but I'm sure some parents somewhere might want to go in on this. The fact is that they are, whether or not it's like I was trying to make the argument that they are teaching all kinds of divisive things in schools. The divisiveness in schools has been being taught just everywhere. They're always focusing on everybody's differences. Nothing about common ground ever in school. So I was pointing this out to somebody on Twitter who was very, very stuck in the belief system of a certain political party. And no matter what I showed him, he said, "That's not that. That's not what they means. You're not a good media analyst and all this stuff." And I went back and forth with him for a little bit cuz admittedly, I kind of fell into it, I kind of fell into it. I was getting frustrated cuz he's being stupid. And I got to a point in the conversation where I just stopped and I thought about it cuz obviously I had other things to be doing with my day other than arguing with a moron on Twitter. So I sort of left that conversation and I really had to sit there and think. When is the last time arguing with somebody, especially on the internet, where they don't even really see you as a person, you're just an icon on the screen with the name Hell on Wheels or Uncool Paranoia or whoever on it? Like they're not even seeing the human being that they're talking to. So why would they listen to that human being? Once in a while I've gotten some people to make me think about some stuff. But it really doesn't happen that way. So I got to thinking. I'm like, there's no point in really arguing with anyone But there's especially no point in trying to have discussions on the internet for two reasons. One, you don't know if they're a bot or a shill or whatever. Two, even if they're not, a lot of people on the internet like to shove themselves into these corners. They like to find themselves little circles that'll just keep confirming everything that they say for them. So, the Democrats hang out on most social media sites, and then the Republicans go to like fucking Gab or whatever. So people, if you can't get people to agree with you, you can find a little bubble somewhere on social media that will. So why challenge yourself when the only people that are challenging you are just some random person with an icon on their screen? Uncool Paranoia says the rate of cognitive decline has steadily increased since the scamdemic started. The crazy part is that they think they're waking up. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at a little bit with that whole goldfish memory thing. Because I think the existing issues that we had in our population before got way, way, way worse when the corona bullshit happened. People were already notorious for having barely any memory of what they ate for breakfast that morning when it comes to like what's going on in the world. And then because I think also because things happened at such a fast rate, like our whole livelihoods changed so much, people just want to block out the past and they want to block out anything that doesn't bring them comfort. They brought people down to their most primal level so that they could use and control them. Echo chamber bias. Exactly. That's what they want on the internet. They want to lock you in your little echo chamber, and they want you to stay there, and then eventually they just want to get rid of certain opinions altogether. And that's really it. They want to kind of get everybody in their little bubbles, and eventually some of those bubbles are disappearing, and that's kind of what what we're seeing in on the internet now as a whole, where we had Democrats and Republicans, so we gave people the illusion of choice for a while, and now they're just kind of like they're pushing everybody toward one viewpoint. So now it's not going to be all their separate bubbles, it's going to be just one bubble for everybody. And that's yeah, there's a lot to it that I probably couldn't even do justice to if I tried. There are just so many psychological games at play that we really do have to look at ourselves before we look at anything else. Because of something I like to say is that the second that you feel like you can't be manipulated, that's the time that you can be manipulated the most. As soon as you think you're above the manipulation and you're above this and you're above that, that's when you start seeing it in yourself. So we ought as people to be very careful with thinking we're above anything. And that's something I've learned in my life. It's like I am not above anything because maybe and I should be careful not to judge anyone before I judge myself because maybe maybe if my situation were different somehow, maybe I would have ended up that way too. But God put us in the situations that we're in for a reason. But I always do wonder about that. Like, could I have ended up like a lot of the people I get frustrated with? Are there situations where I could potentially become that kind of person? I should always be careful. I should guard my heart and mind. I should guard myself from behavior that I wouldn't want to see in anyone else. We should always be soul searching. And I always try to be soul searching at all times because I'm always worried to let my guard down because if we're not careful and we start thinking we're above things, God has a way of showing us that we're not. Anyway, I should really wrap this up soon. I'm sorry for going on such a tangent. I hope it wasn't too much of a ramble. Does anyone here have any thoughts? I do like interacting with you guys, and I like I like having the I think I will do some more call-in shows and whatnot. I just don't know if I'm gonna do it the same way. I think it's good. You know, the internet, for all its faults and problems and things, it does bring us some good things. Because if it wasn't for the internet, a lot of us wouldn't have known each other. And that's just it. That's one more thing I will say is I think it's good and it serves us well to use their tools against them. I think that's a very, you know, and I'm not even just talking about I'm talking about like the internet obviously and stuff, but I'm also talking about using the things that they use, like using humor, using, appealing a little bit to people's emotions. Not the way they do in like a bad way, but I think we really should acknowledge the fact that people's decision making in general, and they've done a lot of studies on this, a lot of reasoning comes from emotional places too. And I think us being factual people is great, but I also think we need to show people the weight of the reality that ignoring this stuff is going to bring us. With that being said, I'm gonna wrap it up before it gets too late. I know a couple of you guys are on the East Coast, so I don't want to keep you guys up either. So have a good night, everyone.